Yes, people, welcome back to Brendan Pearson Fitness. So today's video is going to be all about knee pain. So 5 reasons or 5 ways that I have improved or pretty much got rid of my chronic knee pain. So if you don't want to hear about my sub story about my knee pain, you can skip ahead. All the timestamps are down below, so you can actually skip to the 5 reasons how I actually improved my knee pain. But if you want to listen to the stop story about why my knees are nearly falling off and how I fixed them, then stay for this part. So a little bit of background about myself. So I used to play football. I was at Newcastle United for a number of years, and knee pain was a big part of the reason why I've retired from football, so why I started football. So my knee issues really started when I was about 16. I had my first serious knee injury. I had a lateral meniscus tear, so that's pretty much the cartilage in your knee, on my right knee. It had a little bit of a tear in it, so that was the first real bit of knee issue that I had. So I had that operated on at 16 years old. And then after that, I had something called patella tendonitis. So 2 years later, I remember I was playing football in Holland. We had a pre-season tour, and my knee started to get this little dull ache at the front in my patella tendon. So that's the main kind of soft part above your, kind of behind your kneecap, going down into your shin, the middle bit of your knee. Started getting a little bit of pain in there, and then from there it kind of just developed, got a little bit worse to the point where I had to stop football and obviously come out of it, try and rehab it, so again I could go back on the field pain free. So this wasn't a very successful process. I ended up being out for a total of 18 months. I had injections, I had knee surgery on my left side. I had every treatment under the sun. I've seen one of the best tendon surgeons, Håkan Alfredsson. If you've ever had Achilles tendonitis, you've probably done his eccentric protocol, which is 3 sets of 15, 3 set eccentrics on either side. So yeah, nothing really went to plan. So after that, again, tried to pursue a career in football, but I always had this nagging pain in both of my knees. It felt like after every single training session, every time I tried to stretch my knee, kind of flex it up, it just felt something was pulling. Every time I drive or sit down for more than 10 minutes, my knees would start to really ache. When I was playing, I couldn't really push off it. There used to be occasional times where I used to plant my foot into the ground to try and kick a ball, and it used to just feel like I had a dead knee, and I just couldn't actually work the muscles around my knee, contract them properly. So I took a year out of football after that, came back into it for a few months last season, and it still wasn't right. There was still, the issue was still there, and it wasn't getting any better. Luckily, however, now the knees are feeling a lot better. I have had to stop football because I've had a lot of other injuries. If you want to listen to a podcast or anything about me talking about my injuries again, another sub story, the link for the podcast will be down below. I don't know if I've talked about it anywhere on YouTube, so I'll stick a little tag up here. I've done a podcast talking about my career and stuff. But anyway, that's not why you're here. You're here to find out about how to fix your knee pain. So, 5 things that help me to alleviate my knee pain, more specifically my patella tendonitis, my chronic patella tendonitis. So obviously with a massive craze at the minute with the knees over toes guy, if you don't follow the knees over toes guy, he is one of the goats in terms of knee pain. Some of the exercises, the ATG split squat, the reverse Nordic curls, all that sort of stuff. All the tibialis stuff that he's been doing has been opening people's eyes to different things to help with their knee pain. And I know I've took a lot of the things that he's done, putting them into my own training, and they have massively helped me. Obviously, some of the stuff that he does, like jumping off ladders onto the floor and stuff, wouldn't be doing that straight away if you've got bad knees. But what his story has shown is that doing these things consistently for a long period of time can obviously alleviate your knee pain. So we'll jump straight into the 5 things that have helped me personally reduce my chronic knee pain. So first one is getting comfortable with squatting on your toes with your heels elevated, or lunging with your heels elevated. So this is a thing that the knee over toe guy is a big believer in. He practices the ATG split squat, where it's pretty much a split squat. Your feet are a little bit further apart, and you are actually letting your heel come off the ground and driving through your toes. So you're getting a lot of dorsiflexion. The old myth of knees can't go over the toes when you're squatting or lunging, that's a load of rubbish. If you don't have strength in that area, if you don't have strength in that deep knee flexion, you're going to get pain there. If you don't strengthen certain areas, it's like if you don't strengthen your hamstrings and you go and try and sprint, you're going to pull a hamstring. You've got to work all the different range of motion. So that's one thing I've really been practicing. Now, there's loads of different ways you can do this. And to start off with, if you are someone who has knee pain, it's going to hurt. So I would probably start off by doing it assisted. Do it with a resistance band, hold on to a resistance band do it on a machine when you're fixed into something and you can drop the load to like 5 kilograms and work that load. Now, if you are someone who is suffering with real knee pain, obviously go and see a specialist. I'm not a physio by any means. Go and see a specialist who understands the stuff. You might need some treatment. However, for myself, taking a little bit of time off and resting and then going into building myself back up with some decline squats on a decline board. Start with a low decline and then just slowly raise it. Then you'll get to the point where you can actually squat on your toes pain-free. It is a very slow process, but learning to squat on your toes, being able to be comfortable with getting in that deep dorsiflexion, deep squat pain-free. Now, like I said, it's going to take a long time to get used to it. I've listened to podcasts with the knees over toe guy, and he said it took him about 2 years to get to the point to actually be pain-free where he's at today. So 2 years is a long time. However, in the grand scheme of your life, 2 years of knuckling down and trying to help this chronic knee pain is nothing compared to the life that you're going to live after that. So practicing squatting on your toes, lunging on your toes, being able to get comfortable with that. And if your heels are coming off doing certain things, that's absolutely fine. A byproduct of this is going to be your ankle dorsiflexion, so your ankle mobility is going to help massively. Now, one big thing that I've seen, especially when I was playing football with a lot of athletes, is they have tight ankles. The calves, the Achilles are really tight, which limits their dorsiflexion, which limits their ability for their knees to come over the toes, and that puts a little bit more pressure on that knee, puts a little bit more pressure on that patellar tendon, and increases your chances of injury. So it's a byproduct of one thing. When you're trying to strengthen that deep dorsiflexion and deep squatting, your ankle mobility and your ankle dorsiflexion is also going to improve. So again, there's a little bit of carryover. So definitely point number one, making sure that you are practicing squatting on your toes, squatting or lunging on your toes, getting comfortable with that. Now, that's not to say go and stick 100 kilograms on your back straight away and go and try and squat on your toes. No, start with body weight, start assisted, and then progress from there. So number two kind of links in. You'll probably find that all these points are linking together. So point number two is mobility. Be consistent and practice mobility if you can every single day. I'm a big believer in doing some form of mobility recovery stuff every single day. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I do 10-15 minutes of mobility every single morning as part of my morning routine. The reason I do it is because I understand the value of doing it consistently. If you're doing 10 minutes every single day rather than just doing 60 minutes once a week, you're going to be doing that a little bit more frequently, so your body's going to get used to the certain positions that you're going in. Now, some of the stretches that I recommend, you're going to have to start at a lower progression. So one of the big ones, I'll put an Instagram post on about this one, is the lion hero pose. So again, another thing that I've kind of stole from the knees over toes guy, I've seen him do it, is pretty much laying down on the floor. Again, I'll put a video or a picture on screen now. Lying on the floor, and you're pretty much leaning back as if you're doing a reverse Nordic, and you're laying flat on the floor with your knees bent and your shins parallel flat on the ground. So the idea behind this is just to really stretch out the quads. If your quads get tight, it's going to pull on that patella, going to pull on that on your knees, and you're going to have a little bit more strain on your knees. It's going to loosen off them hip flexors, and also it's going to stretch the patella tendon. Now, like I said before, when I was playing football and after training, I would always find my tendon was so stiff that I couldn't really flex my knee at all without being pain. So over time, if you can practice this, you might need to start in a couch stretch position. You might need to start in a kind of a twisted greater stretch position when you're just pulling your quad. Start with just a standing quad stretch and then build up from there. It's just getting used to working that deep knee flexion. Again, doing the knees over toes, the ATG stuff is definitely going to help with that range of motion as well. It's just something that you're going to build up over time. Even now, when I wake up in the morning, I go and do my stretches. The first time that I do it, I'm always a little bit stiff and I can't get all the way down. My knees are kind of starting to raise, my shins are starting to raise. There's a little bit too much of an arch in my lower back. But the more consistently I do it 3 times. I do it 3 times round, like my routine every single morning. You're going to get better, it's going to ease into it, and you're going to get more comfortable to the point where you can probably just drop into it straight away over time. So be consistent with mobility. Obviously, it's not just going to be hip flexor and quad stretches that you want to do. You want to work on your ankle range of motion, you want to work on your hamstring flexibility, doing stretches like the downward dog stretch, downward dog pose in yoga. It's a really good one to stretch off everything from the hamstrings, the back, the calves, everything. It's going to be painful to start with. I'm not going to make it sound amazing, but it is really painful to start off with, but over time it will get better. So maybe go to a yoga session once a week, start with that and then build it up. If you feel like you need force, it's something like that will definitely be beneficial for you. So just build it up over time. If you can implement some sort of form of daily mobility, perfect. Foam rolling, again, can be a good way to kind of release a little bit more tension in the quads, especially around the muscles like the VMO, which is kind of the teardrop muscle around your quad. VMO, the lateralus as well, which runs down the other side of your quad. Again, I'll put little pictures on screen for people who don't know where they are. Stretching off everything, hips, quads, is going to be a real big benefit to your knees long term if you're consistent with it, which is the main thing. Consistency is key with anything. If you're doing something for a week, it's not going to be anywhere near as beneficial as if you're doing something for a year. So really be consistent with it. On the topic of mobility, there's a few obviously exercises like I mentioned before with the knees over toes, ATG split squats. Reverse Nordics again can be a little bit of a progression from the Lion Heroes pose. So it's actually getting into that position, but using your quads to actually control yourself down. So it's going to really work the rectus femoris, your rec fem muscle, in its length and range, build a little bit of strength that way as well. So there's loads of different exercises, like I said, that integrate in mobility as well as strength. So practicing them. So that's point number 2. Moving on to point number 3, which is going to be all to do with tempo. Now, for those who do like to strength train, do like to back squat, maybe bodybuilders who like to do a little bit of hack squat, leg pressing, whatever it is you do, slow down the tempo massively. Now, if you're someone who does squats, leg press, anything like that, and they're going really fast down and bouncing and coming back up to the top, what is happening there is your connective tissue, your tendons are going to be taking over and doing that kind of bouncing motion at the bottom. So tendons are the thing that absorb a lot of the force when, say, you're jumping, doing plyometrics, doing squats and bouncing at the bottom. So they are going to take a lot of force if you're squatting 100 kilograms, going down at the bottom and bouncing up and down. Now, if you're someone who is like that, what I would get you to do is slow that tempo down a lot. So I tell people a lot of the time when they're first starting out training, the tempo that we're looking for is 3 seconds down, a 1 second pause at the bottom, and then about a 2 second concentric, so a 2 second on the way up, and then pause and reset at the top. The reason behind that, again, is if we slow things down, it's going to be our muscles working rather than that connective tissue, the tendons and ligaments, when we get to that bottom point and we're pausing it. Like I said, if we speed things up and go down quick and then explode up, the tendons are going to be taking the force. Now, if you've got tendon pain or you've got any sort of knee pain, we want to alleviate, you want to give time for them tendons to rest and recover and work on the muscles around it, so control that tempo as much as you can. Also, in terms of hypertrophy, the benefits, the muscles are going to be working. Simple. To grow muscles, to build muscles, we need to work them rather than tendons. So if you're someone who's trying to build muscle, stop focusing so much on the load that you are lifting and focus on the muscles you are working. So if you can't feel your quads working when you're doing a hack squat, when you're doing a leg extension, whatever it is, then you're not working it. You just need to drop that weight, drop that tempo, and really focus on it. That was one thing that I learned over time, over years of obviously playing football, but also doing a lot of strength conditioning, bodybuilding training, that I was just focusing on the load and just focused on getting that weight up to the top rather than actually doing it with control. So slow that tempo down. Maybe even focus on some isometrics. The reason isometrics work so well is that, again, it's just the muscles that are purely working. When you're in a static position, for example, like a wall sit or an isometric split squat, you're stuck in a position and your muscle tissue is trying to contract from a static position. Your tendons aren't doing anything because there isn't any force to absorb. There isn't anything there. So getting the muscles to fire through isometrics has been proven through numerous amount of studies to help alleviate tendonitis or alleviate a little bit of pain in tendonitis, and also increase motor neuron recruitment. So all the muscle fibers are going to be firing a lot more rather than trying to do concentric or eccentric or just a normal bodyweight squat when you're in pain. So try throwing in some isometrics if you are struggling. For me personally, I integrated them a little bit to start with, but I found trying to work on really slow eccentrics and really slow concentrics to help me a lot more. So on to point number 4, recovery. Give yourself a little bit more recovery time in between sessions, whether it be for a sport or whether it be for gym-related bodybuilding, strength conditioning training. Now, a lot of people don't realize tendons take a lot longer to recover than muscles. Your muscles, for example, might take 24 hours, 48 hours for a session. Tendons probably take twice as long to recover from that. So, for example, if you're doing a heavy leg session on a Monday, most people would maybe try and get another leg session in on a Thursday or a Friday. To start off with, if you are someone who is struggling from knee pain, maybe just drop to 1 session per week. I know it's not optimal for hypertrophy. There's a lot of studies and saying 2 or 3 times a week is more optimal. However, you've got to think of longevity. You've got to think of your tissue health. You've only got so many miles on your body, so maybe drop to 1 session per week for a short period of time. Allow those tendons to recover a little bit more rather than having to go again in 4 or 5 days. Give them 7 or 8 days, or maybe even do legs maybe maybe once every other week, or maybe drop it completely for a short period of time, just to allow them tendons to completely recover. Same thing for football. I remember when I was just getting back after my injuries with my knees, I went on, day off training regimen rather than train every single day. Luckily, the club I was at was quite good with that. When I was at Newcastle, they were quite good in terms of giving me 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off, just because they understood that tendons take a little bit more time to recover. So if you're an athlete and you are struggling with tendonitis, maybe give yourself that time. If you're doing any sort of protocol, eccentric protocol, it is a day on, day off protocol anyway, just to give that tendon a little bit more time to recover. So like I said, whether you're an athlete, whether you're just a conventional bodybuilder, or just someone who wants to get fit, if you do struggle with any sort of tendon pain, whether it is in your knees or even in your Achilles or in your ankles, give yourself a little bit more recovery time. Do your rehab stuff, do your strength workout. Maybe just do it once a week to start off with, give yourself more time. And I found that massively helped alleviate a little bit of my knee pain. Again, you don't want to completely rest. Tendons don't like to completely rest. Maybe give yourself an initial 1 to 2 weeks to start with, then build yourself back up from there. Recovery is massively important. And there's a lot of other things that go along with recovery as well, in terms of making sure you're stretching, making sure you're giving yourself plenty of sleep, proper nutrition as well, which massively help in terms of alleviating any sort of inflammation and stuff. But again, that's just me rambling a little bit too much. But the main thing is give yourself more recovery in between sessions to allow the tendons to recover. So the final thing that has massively helped my knee pain has been stopping any sort of plyometrics, stopping any sort of high impact training. So obviously I was playing football, I've stopped that now, which has been a massive help for my knees. Without those plyometrics, myself, I was a goalkeeper, so it was a lot of plyometrics, a lot of jumping, a lot of landing, a lot of kicking, a lot of impact going through my joints. Stopping them things for a short period of time will massively help. Again, it gives them tendons a little bit more time to recover. I understand if you are an athlete, you do have to go out and still perform. Sometimes you've still got to go out to train, you've got to go and play games. I know that's sometimes not always possible, but have a word with your coach. If you've got good physios, if you've got good backroom staff, S&C coaches, they will understand that you need a little bit of time to back off and then go again. Like I did before, like I said, day on, day off might be something that you want to look into to start off with, and then down the line you can slowly build up the intensity, build up the volume that you do. But stopping, if you're someone who goes to the gym just conventionally, or if you're somebody who likes to do conditioning workouts, a lot of Metcons, CrossFit style training, Olympic lifting, for the time being, if you're suffering with some knee pain, I would definitely stop that completely. Even things like additional conditioning, I was finding I was doing a lot of functional fitness, a lot of CrossFit. I was doing a lot of work on the bike, assault bike. I was doing a lot of things like box jumps, burpees, a lot of things that are additional impact and additional load going through my legs. Once I dropped all that, gave myself a little bit more rest and just focused on maybe one leg dominant session during the week, and then I built up to two, which is what I'm currently doing at the minute. I found that my knee pain slowly over time got a little bit better. So it can be frustrating, but there's always alternatives to doing things. Rather than trying to hammer yourself on the assault bike all the time, maybe do a little bit of ski erg work, or do some seated ski erg work. There's always things that you can work on that don't always involve the knee. So give yourself more recovery time. Again, the last 2 points kind of integrate and link into each other, but stopping the plyometrics, stopping any sort of high impact training. It might be one of them things where you feel frustrated for a few weeks, but it's that one step back to go 3 or 4 steps forward. Think of the long term. Don't just think about the next 3 months. Think about the next 3 years or 30 years when you're old and playing with your grandkids. Do you want to be in chronic knee pain, or do you want to be healthy, and do you want to be able to kick a ball around and play sports with your kids and your grandkids? So you've got to think about the big picture in this thing, especially when I was surrounded in the world of football and the world of sport. The big picture isn't a thing. Your longevity isn't really a thing when you're thinking about. They always think about the next Saturday, the next game, the next cup match, the whatever it is. It's just getting through game to game, where you've got to think, if you're a young athlete, you've got a 10, 15 year career if you're lucky. If you're out for 3 months just because you need to kind of back off a little bit with a little bit of a knee injury, that's tiny in the big picture. Whereas if you're just scraping through game to game to game, or scraping through every single training session just so you can get fit and play on one Saturday, you're going to kill yourself, and you're going to end up in a position like myself where I'm 24. Well, I retired when I was 23 years old. I stopped playing just because the pain was mentally affecting me as well as physically. So you've got to think of the big picture. But I'm rambling a little bit. So there were the 5 points. To summarize, number 1, get comfortable with squatting on your toes, lunging on your toes. Get comfortable with build strength in that deep squat, deep range of motion, it will just transfer over into mobility, it'll transfer over into your sport, it'll transfer over into your gym work, whatever your goals are. Number 2, mobility. Hammer it, try and get onto it consistently. Yoga's brilliant. Practice the Lion Heroes pose is the big one. If you can't do that, start with couch stretch. Start with just a standing quad stretch. Add other things in and try and get it in as part of your daily routine. Once you buy into it, once you buy into that lifestyle and buy into mobility, it'll just feel natural, and you want to do it every single day. You'll have to do it every single day because you understand how much it makes you feel good and how much it improves your life. Next one, tempo. Drop the tempo completely. Start by doing 3 seconds down, pause at the bottom with every exercise, and 2 seconds up, so it's not explosive on the way up. Think about the muscles that you're working. You might have to drop the weight a lot. You might have to drop your ego quite a bit. If you're used to doing 7 plates on a hack squat or 100 kilogram, 140 kilogram back squat, you might have to drop to 60 kilograms for a short period of time. Focus on getting the movement right, focus on the muscles you're working, and over time, it'll definitely benefit your knee health. And also, probably you find that you're building a little bit more muscle because you're focusing more on the muscles that you're working rather than the weights you're lifting. Next one is allow a little bit more recovery in between sessions. If at the minute you're training 5 days a week and all them sessions are involving your knees, involving your lower body, drop to 2 days a week, drop to 1 day a week to start with, and allow a little bit more recovery. Maybe a 2-week initial complete time off for your knees might be needed to start with. Then you can slowly build up. So allow a lot more recovery time so those tendons can recover, because remember, tendons take longer to recover than muscles do. And then finally, drop the plyometrics, drop the high impact stuff, drop total volume in terms of your sessions. You might have to drop your conditioning stuff, even drop things like bike, because I found if you're doing a lot of cycling, a lot of things that involve your knees every single day, that just builds up a lot more fatigue, and yeah, your knee pain will probably suffer from that. So hopefully this video has been interesting and hopefully it's helped a few of you out. I realize it's been a little bit more of a talkative one. Some people might have switched off. If you do have knee pain, I hope you take some value from this video. If you do, drop me a comment, drop me a message on Instagram at Brendan Pearson Fitness. If you don't already follow me on there. Any questions, I'm happy to answer anybody. I'll leave you a voice note or whatever it is over there as well. So thank you very much for watching. As always, like, comment, subscribe, stick your notifications on. Any requests for videos in the future, pop them down below. Any videos to do with knee pain, I've done a few videos on knee pain before, which I might tag up here or maybe in the comments down below. But thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.
Et si tu crois que je m'en fous, que l'amour nous a mis à bout, j'ai encore des larmes de réserve, j'ai encore des pains que je préserve. Et si tu crois que je m'en fous,